And then we get into episode 6.
Which opened with the whales.
Yes.
In a very different looking hyper jump visual.
It was very different. And all I can imagine is... How can I describe this? Right. If you are sprinting, me or you were sprinting down like a long straight path next to a road.
Yeah,
everything's going past you quite fast.
Yeah.
But it still looks very different to if you're driving past something.
Yes.
When you're driving past stuff, it's going past you 9 times out of 10 faster than if you were just sprinting. But it feels like it's going past slower because it's more constant and more even.
So I
think that's kind of the idea. A hyper jump is very calculated and done by computers.
That's sort of where
the whales are just like, let's go.
Yeah, that's sort of where my theory was going. It's like the usual like spiral look of it all moving is because it's a calculated mechanical thing that's causing them to jump. The whales, this is just pure nature traveling through space at a hyper speed. Like it's gonna look, it's more bright, colorful light. It's streaks rather than a spiral. Like it's not like a mechanical spiral sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a natural way of how you would travel through space, where ships have had to mechanically figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to show. It looked great. I got there's Huang makes like some comment about traveling through space. I forget what it was. It was like, this is a unique way that I've never traveled through space in this way.
Was it not traveling in the mouth of a star whale? I'll have to add this onto a list of
Yes.
weird ways I've traveled.
Do you know what that felt like? That almost felt like David Tennant adding that line as Doctor Who, and it was like a little hint at his Doctor Who time.
Yeah.
And then they talked about stories.
Yeah.
From the Jedi temples.
And Huang being potentially the most caring he's ever been, instead of just a sarcastic bitch, was like, would you like to hear one? I still have them all saved.
Honestly, it was that point where I'm like, fucking hell, Huang is a old as fuck droid.
And when you actually see him next to other droids, you can actually see it in the way they've designed him. He looks more mechanical and old school. He looks more steampunkish.
Yes.
He doesn't look steampunk, but he looks more like that.
Yeah.
Whereas like a chopper or an R2 or just like even like a B2 battle droid, they look more humanoid and less robot-y.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then Ahsoka confides in him about lying about Sabine.
Yes. Of which you can tell she shows a bit of anger.
Yeah.
In that, which I think Huang picks up on and kind of quells pretty well.
Yeah. He kind of went, well, you don't know what happened. Maybe get the information and then make a decision.
And then obviously Ahsoka dodges it.
Yeah.
And goes, oh, go on, tell us one of them stories. And we get the line.
We get what is now probably going to be my favorite 3 seconds in Star Wars history. Of David Tennant Huang just going a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Now,
so good.
I have a fun theory that those stories, where they were like part 1, part 2, part 3, I saw straight away some people like, oh, they're sorry, they're referencing episode 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, no, they're not going to be like
stories. Then,
they're not going to be that meta about like. Although the Skywalker saga is actually like written by it's meant to be written by a future race talking about stuff that happened in the past. I actually think the stories he's on about is either the founding of the Jedi Order or the first Force users that arrived. Yeah. And that's why it's like a galaxy far, far away.
It is now my headcanon, though, that Huang survives everything, and he is the one telling these stories thousands of years in the future.
That would be pretty cool.
Huang is still alive somewhere. He is in the thousands of years in the future. They're keeping him going. They're finding these rare ancient parks to keep him working. And he is telling the story of the Jedi of tens of thousands of years ago.
Imagine there's a world where Huang just kind of builds like a little hut on the back of a Purgle, and that's just what he
Goes
just
galaxy to galaxy,
yeah he
telling
just
these stories.
he has no control where he goes. He just rides on a Purgle, and he's just like has an archive of all Jedi and stuff information. And it's like someone could find him. That'd be pretty cool.
Very, very cool. And then it cuts into the title,
Right?
which is Far, Far Away.
Yes, it does.
Now, something that's very interesting,
Uh-huh.
when Filoni was talking about
I've seen
Ahsoka,
this
he was
like
asked,
way back.
yeah, someone went, so where's Ezra? And he went, he's far, far away.
Yeah.
And obviously, at the end of this episode, we get Ezra, and the episode's called Far, Far Away. And if you look at the clip, Dave has one of them shit-eating grins.
Yeah.
Where he's made himself laugh. He's like, he's far, far away.
Yeah, he said that as a joke, and then when he's come to writing Ahsoka, he's gone, okay, I know when we make Ezra appear.
Yeah.
And I know the title of the episode. And then he's got that, and he's like, oh, I know how I can get to the title of the episode. Huang can say,
yeah,
and he's just like having fun with it.
He's such
for
a
sure.
Shit.
Then we cut to the ring arriving, and the way that comes out of its hyper jump with the crackle of lightning, almost like Sith-like,
and very much like the metal
smoldering,
like red hot,
smoldering.
Very,
very much as they've pushed their technological abilities to the limit.
Yeah, and Purgle have just been doing this for millennia.
It shows
Purgles are actually kind of scary.
Yeah, they've been around since before time began.
Yeah, they're cute, and I want to give them pets, but they're kind of scary.
Yeah. Do you want to know what's a sad realization though? When I'm like, oh, that planet looks cool. It's got like rings around it. Those rings are just a graveyard. And then if you think back to the star map, and we saw the planet, and it's like, oh, it's got symbols of Purgles around it. It's because the Purgles. No, it was referencing the ring of dead Purgles around the planet. Honestly, it's very cool though, because it reminds me of like how elephants travel to their graveyard. That idea. So I thought that was a very cool way of kind of explaining why they jump to this place and migrate to this place.
Oh, that is just the beginning of the fucking symbolism here.
Oh, there's so
I know you'll have a lot of notes on the actual Star Wars stuff. There is some big boy symbolism at play that could not have been used better.
Yes.
So,
go on.
Before we get into the serious stuff, I have one silly comment to make.
Okay, I'm ready.
Shout out to the pilot of the Star Destroyer. That man has parked perfectly. He's got this massive fucking ship, and there's this tiny little stone platform, and he's got it to the perfect height so that Thrawn's lazy ass can walk out perfectly level.
Yeah, on a magical bridge.
That man is not getting paid enough.
No, he's not.
Not getting paid enough. That is some prime parallel parking.
While this you're making a silly comment, I agree, but also on par with that shot of the ship appearing and the symmetry of the tower with then the split, like the fold down the base of the ship and everything perfectly lining up was such a beautiful shot.
Such a Star Wars shot.
Yes. I thought, so obviously we arrive and there's the 3 Night Mothers just chilling there.
We find out that the Dathomirians are originally from this galaxy, which is a fucking massive revelation, and also explains a lot of why we don't really understand the Night Sisters at all, because they're from a completely different universe, essentially.
Yeah, that was completely new information. It's up until this point, everyone always was like, they're from Dathomir, but we've now found out they settled on Dathomir and just named the planet after themselves.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Also, the mention that like they traveled before records of time began, which means they were like one of the first.
They are an ancient.
Yes,
species.
Ancient race and species. Yeah. I thought very interesting that there was like the 3 of them, and we obviously had the episode earlier with Toil and Trouble, which we referenced. Obviously, the witches.
They are the 3 witches. Like in this episode, they talk about like the the spindle, not spindle, the thread of fate, and it was a loose thread, and they didn't see it. It is so Shakespearean.
There's more symbolism in all that.
Oh,
So
of course there is.
we get their names through the subtitles. Their 3 names match up with the 3 Greek goddesses who weave the thread of life. And there's like their hats almost line up with like one of them was like the needle, one is controlling thread, and then one scissors that cuts the thread at death. And there's like a 1 point, like a flowy hat, and then one's got 2 points like scissors. So there's like so much symbolism there that Dave Filoni's putting into this.
And here's the thing. Star Wars has always been so heavily into symbolism. Like, it's outrageously obvious. If we're being honest, Star Wars is actually not a unique IP at all. It is George Lucas sat in his university going, and this bit of history and this bit of theology is cool, and this bit is cool, and this bit is cool, and now we give them laser swords and it's in space.
Literally. I thought their visual style looked incredible because that's the first time we've seen Night Mothers since Clone Wars.
Yeah.
The way her voice echoed like it used to in Clone Wars all gives the same vibe. Their nails look gross as fuck when we got that really close up on her hand. And yeah, they have been talking to Morgan.
Yeah, they've been the ones reaching out and giving her these dreams of Thrawn.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling Thrawn's manipulated them again, though, just to show how masterful a tactician he is.
I think he's definitely using them. And we've seen that in the Clone Wars, they were happy to work with the Jedi at time, but also worked with the Sith. Like, they're happy to work with anyone. They're playing their own game, and Thrawn also playing his own game. Willing to do what he can to survive, obviously.
100%. Can I just say,
mm-hmm.
I love that they got, it's Lars Mikkelsen, isn't it?
Yes.
Back to play Thrawn. I love it. He's done a great job. While I was trying to watch Ahsoka, the episode of Ahsoka the first time last night when I was like half asleep and I had to end up chalking it and watching it today because I was so tired, it was actually really fucking trippy. Because, like, in Rebels, the voice actors all, I don't want to say they ham it up a bit, but they do, like, voices that feel like voice actors. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
But he's doing the exact same voice because he has that voice.
Yeah.
And it genuinely, for a second, I'm like, oh, that's a bit weird. Because it felt like hearing a voice you should never be able to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just a little bit like oh no, because like my eyes are like trying to close on themselves, and I'm like looking, I'm like hearing this voice now, expecting to see the animated Thrawn, and it's Lars because I'm like, oh, it was fucking my brain royally, just because obviously it's the exact same voice, but when you've got like the cartoon in between, it feels like it's that animated character's voice, not a real person's voice.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you very, very rarely get to see someone who's voiced a character do that voice in live action.
Yeah.
And like Thrawn's voice being such a unique voice. Genuinely, it took me 5 minutes of just kind of going, oh,
it hit.
I liked it, but it was weird.
It hit instantly. I was like, oh shit, Thrawn's back. Like, it's that like, oh, okay, this is Thrawn. But like getting to like how Thrawn arrived, obviously like the Night Mothers like it reeks of Jedi, and everyone looks at Sabine, and everyone's like, the viewers were all a bit like, but she's not a Jedi.
She fucking wishes.
She's trying. So is this you saying that she does have the Force?
I'm really curious how they're aware of the Jedi though. Are the Jedi also older than the galaxy we're currently in?
Well, the Jedi Order isn't, but Force users are.
Yeah, but they said the Jedi specifically.
Well, they know
which is
about.
Just interesting.
They know about Jedi because. So when I'm pretty sure that all like memories are connected into the Night Mother, is how it was sold in Clone Wars. So I imagine they have some collective hive mind memory of understanding of who Jedi are. But yeah, I thought it was very funny how they baited us again with Sabine. She's like, oh,
100%.
I'm sick of this. I'm going to try and force open the door. And we're like, is this going to be the time it works? And there's a rumble, and you think, oh shit, the door's going to open. No,
It's the ship.
just the Chimera coming into frame at that shot we talked about with the same pattern underneath. And then,
And this is where we need to get into the insanity of the symbolism here.
yes.
So, the entire idea of the Night Sisters
Yeah.
is like they have a lot of control and sway over life and death.
Yeah.
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 And that's played into even more with the idea of the three witches and the thread of life. And like you said,
Yeah.
the Greek goddesses who spin the wine, manage the wine, and cut the wine, and all that stuff. Then we go to the other side, and a lot of Thrawn stuff. So Thrawn always has a very British aura about him. And you'll remember when I started watching Rebels, I said in the chat to you and Luke, why is Thrawn so obsessed with other cultures? Is he supposed to be British? Because the Empire was based on America, with the Rebels being Vietnam and stuff like that. So like that's not an uncommon thing. What's really interesting is you'll notice a lot of his guards have got this kind of cracked pattern, and the ship is obviously not in a great way, and lots of repairs have been done with this kind of gold filling, which is a very ancient Chinese tradition, but it's been misused. So in the Chinese way, it'd be done on like pottery or whatever, to add value to like family heirlooms and preserve them. Whereas he's using it for his own tactical gains of preserving his army, his ship, his power, which is not the right way to use it. Which further drives home to me that Thrawn is supposed to be Star Wars' version of the way the British acted. We're going to come here, we're going to learn about your culture, and then we're going to twist it and make it our own for whatever we need it to be.
I think they're going for, I think you're right. There's definitely, Thrawn is sort of gives off British colonialism. And then they're kind of now more so with this as well. I think they're playing a bit into Roman culture as well. Because obviously when Rome fucking went round the world just taking over, they just took things of culture. They were like, that's ours now.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire, Hori?
Every fucking day. I knew you were going to say
right,
that.
Though.
Yeah, like, so I think they're pulling from both. That like idea that the Romans stole culture, and then the British just like were obsessed with everyone's culture.
And we saw the same thing later on with the raiders that Sabine bumps into. They have all got very Japanese feudal style armor.
Yes, they do.
There's a lot. So if we view it in this kind of idea that a lot of Star Wars has been the West in the way everything's portrayed.
Ooh.
We're in a different galaxy, and a lot of the stuff we're seeing here is more Eastern themed.
Yes. Yeah.
And at the same time, we're now getting a bit more of Balin's true motives, which are there's some secret power out here.
We'll slow down on that because I've got theories on that. But I also think
it's very interesting the way the thematically it's identical, but they've just gone to a slightly different place.
Do you know what I'm realizing? Because there's been times where we've seen similar things with because also don't forget this, the night troopers, as they're called, had also the red ribbons on. We saw in Maul's temple that he was hiding out in when he took Ezra, there was red ribbon stuff there. We've seen them use gold, like he had things with gold, and it's clearly something the Night Sisters uses symbolism, and it shows like their thematics, which would make sense because they're clearly, we're finding out now they're from this planet, so it's sort of like that's been brought over. I think you're right with how they're pulling from things with the cracked armor. Now, before we get a little bit further, I want to say the score that they do when Thrawn arrives and we see the army fucking hits so well. Like that impact hit, it just like it fits like, oh shit, Thrawn. Like it makes you stop and you're like, fuck. Because obviously there's so many little details. Like obviously, you visually straight away you see all the armor's cracked, dirty, worn. If you notice on his like uniform, very frayed in places, shows that like he is doing his best to uphold this like visual that he is obsessed with in this power. But like 9 years is showing. Like he's been in exile for a while with like nothing but what they had, and it's like, yeah, he's not going to have a spare uniform and stuff, but he wants to wear that uniform every day. It's starting to fray, showing its wear.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, but odds on majority of that force being Dust Boys.
Oh, it's got to be quite high, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I have a theory. I think the night troopers, which because he mentioned dwindling forces, I think the night troopers are still all the same clones. Well, would they be clones still then?
No, they'd be
No,
stormtroopers.
they'd swapped, aren't they?
Yeah,
So yeah,
he's Empire. He's stormtroopers.
yeah. So I think it's all the same stormtroopers. I think there's definitely situations where some have been injured and the Night Sisters have done magic to keep them alive, but I don't think they're full, sort of like giving Maul his legs back, sort of thing. I think Enoch is 100% Dust Boy. And I think it's like, was his right hand man. They've brought him back to life in pure dust form, and it's like that's why he's got the gold mask and that specific
Star
look.
Wars, my favorite Star Wars trope is always going to be the masked right hand man who is just fucking awesome looking. I'm
Mm-hmm.
never going to get bored of it. Boba Fett, and then we had, who was it in the sequel trilogy? Captain Phantasma, and then
Mm-hmm.
in the Clone Wars we also had all the clones at different times. I'm never ever going to get bored of Star Wars going, here is an awesome character whose face you cannot see. Enjoy
Yeah.
them. Love them.
I saw something online which goes back to like using cultural references and stuff. Is the Roman Empire used to make masks of dead people as a way to celebrate them or also wear them in battle, and it's like leans into that. I think that the fact that this is like a complete new look for the stormtroopers that we've ever seen, very cool. Although I'm saying like I think majority of them are actually troopers, I am all for this being the new like undead stormtrooper, and this is how they bring like zombie troopers into Star Wars. I think they might actually be my favorite look for the stormtrooper so far.
The broken down armor that's being held together
With gold
by
and
pure
ribbon
brute
and
force is it's a look.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's very, very plausible that a lot of them are Dust Boys, especially when you consider after 9 years, all of them still being so loyal to Thrawn when he's really getting nowhere.
Yeah.
Is that's not people who are completely of their own free will.
Yeah. That's a point. Obviously they discuss different things. Sabine gets like, and he's like, there's a name I remember.
Name.
And very like the way he like lays it out to Sabine, like, you really sacrificed your own world just to find Ezra. Interesting.
The way he said Sabine Wren,
Mm.
like as someone who's like recently finished Rebels, that felt like a wave of nostalgia. Because I know it sounds so fucking dumb, but like I said, it's so rare for someone who voiced a character in an animated show to make the transition to live action, and as on top of that, the voice being such a unique voice, it felt so awesomely weird.
Do you know what? I think if they hadn't used him, I think people would have felt the whole blue face. Like I'm sure there's people out there that like it looked weird, but I think because it was him and his voice, and it's like it is Thrawn's voice and it's identical, it really actually helps sell the blue skin
100%.
look. Like you don't think about it because you're so like, holy shit, this is Thrawn.
The one time I like noticed like the weirdishness of the blue skin was when they were stood there talking on top of Sabine was riding out. and you get like that 4-second panning shot of him when no one is saying anything.
Mm,
And I'm like, oh, he looks a little bit weird. They starts talking again. And I'm right back in. I'm
yeah.
like, okay, yeah, yeah. Tell me, Thrawn, what's going on? What's your master plan here?
I liked how he showed that very tactician. Ah, could it be the late Ahsoka Tano that I was told was killed? Maybe your ex Jedi guy, like all Jedi, got something wrong. Clearly holds a grudge against the Jedi. I also was intrigued how he called him Commander or Captain? General, sorry.
General.
General Balin.
Well, he will have fought in the Clone Wars. He's the
Well, yeah,
right
but
age.
like, so either he got the information on him or he knew of that name, whether he knew him in person. I also liked how, just like we saw in Rebels, he would always get all the information about someone he was looking for. He asks for all the information on Ahsoka. Now, I think he will piece together that Anakin was, well, he's gonna,
right?
well, so in the books, when Thrawn was in Star Wars Legends in the books and stuff, he is one of few people that knew Anakin was Vader. Obviously, spent time with Vader in the books,
and he just worked it out.
He worked it out, and Vader knew that he knew, but they never explicitly said it. He just like, it was kind of this unspoken rule of like, yes, I know that you know who I was, and you know, like, but we're never going to speak of it. I think the way they'll kind of portray that in this is he'll get told everything he needs to about Ahsoka. Her master was Anakin, and he'll go, ah, I know, and then he'll realize like Anakin became Vader was him. Oh, and he'll kind of like he'll piece it all together.
Oh yeah, and he'll instantly go, that's a huge pressure point.
Yes, he will try to use that against her. And then we get the mention of, oh, we'll load on the cargo.
I want to know what the cargo is.
It's going to be Dead Night Sisters. It's from the catacombs, and they are very coffin-like looking boxes. Yeah. We know that Night Sisters made the journey on Purgle. It wouldn't surprise me if like dead ones made the journey back. They know Dathomir kind of got destroyed and they don't really have a place. They're not really any of them left over there. Why wouldn't they want to take their dead sisters and resurrect them all and rebuild?
It's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This show's only just getting started.
Yes.
And it does concern me slightly about pacing because we've only got 3 episodes left.
I have a new theory on how the pacing is going to go.
Go on.
So we know this is going to take 3 rotations to load the cargo or whatever. Uh-huh. Obviously, we still need to go on about Ezra and how this episode ended. And there's Balin stuff to talk about. But if you think about where this episode ends with Ezra, we're obviously going to get some conflict there with Ezra Thrawn. Something's going to happen. We know from the trailer, we know Thrawn steps foot on the hyper ring cockpit area. Yeah. So like that ship makes it back into orbit, and I'm pretty sure it's just going to dock into the middle of it and lock on. Yeah. And it's going to use it as a hyper jump. I actually think, and I'm okay with this, I think this season ends with Thrawn returning. And that's just like, it ends with Thrawn has returned. And then it will like, we're going to get future, maybe as we get season 2 of Ahsoka. We know there's the film coming that Dave Filoni's doing. Maybe that's all going to lead up to this whole like Heir of the Empire. They have like, because I was talking with Luke about this, and I think it'd be a real shame if they bring him back and then just kill him off. Yeah. He is such a great character, great villain. And also, we know in Star Wars, like, they like to have the villain win at times. Till then, like, there's got to be balance. Thrawn lost by getting sent away. It's kind of time to balance it out and let him return properly.
Yeah, 100%.
And they have plenty of time up to episode 7. They can play around with him before he has to disappear. um, so I actually think the pacing might be okay if they do it that way.
So my thought is, if they are indeed loading Dead Night Sisters, that'll be the thing they have to win this season.
Yeah.
So that'll like stop a part of Thrawn's plan,
Yeah.
and then he'll run off, and then it'll be into Mandalorian season 3 timeline wise, where we see like the Shadow Council meeting, and we hear that Thrawn is back, but he's in hiding right now,
Ooh,
and that'll be
yes.
him regrouping and stuff, ready for whatever comes next.
Yes.
What the interesting thing is Ahsoka is going to arrive, and I do like this. At the end of episode 4, the ring leaves.
Yeah.
End of episode 5, Ahsoka leaves.
Yeah.
Beginning of episode 6, the ring arrives.
Yeah.
Beginning of episode 7, Ahsoka arrives.
Yeah.
That just makes sense. It makes sense because everyone's like, oh yeah, they're an episode behind them. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And we also know the ring won't have left yet because we know Ahsoka was a rotation behind because she was asleep for a rotation.
Yeah.
That was stated, which means there's still going to be 2 rotations of them loading and shit before they need to go, which is going to give us time for a bit of a fight before we need to head back to our galaxy.
Yeah. So I think. So this gets onto like finding Ezra.
Yeah.
Coldest line from Enoch. Die well.
I love that so
much. Man did not hold back.
It's such a soldier line though. Very much like a die with honor.
Yeah.
Here's your weapons. It was almost like when it was like, don't just die. Make sure you take 1 or 2 with you.
Yeah.
It was like I'm sending you to your death, but don't.
I
make sure
imagine
anyone who dies.
some of their troopers, like his fellow comrades, have probably died to the same people out there. So it's like, in a way, it's like, at least take some of them with them because of what they've done to us. I thought it was very funny that, like, well, it was interesting the one she fights, suddenly she's terrible with her blasters, which also shows her like kind of leaning into the Force more, I think, where then she was better with the lightsaber, and that proved better for her. And we had that bit of a fight, and then I thought it was funny, the little funny sequence they did with the Howler, and she's like, no, bad dog.
I adore the Howler. I know I said I wanted to see a Loaf Wolf.
Yeah,
if we don't get to see a Loaf Wolf, but we get a Howler, I'm pretty happy. It was so fun. I have never, ever felt more seen in my entire life. Like, obviously, I've got a husky.
Yes, you do.
He does not get on well with other animals.
Yeah.
Watching her try to control him when he wants to eat the little turtle dudes is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
And she's just like, no, you sit.
Yeah, she keeps telling him off. I thought it was such a good, like, fun little sequence.
But it's also like when he's like sat behind her, it's just always, he looks at her, his ears go up, and then it's back to looking at them, ears down, mean look, lick lips.
Like, yeah, he kept licking lips. And I swear there was one point where like he stood up to walk and like they added saliva drip, and it's like he's waiting to eat.
Oh, he just wants to eat them.
I thought the little turtle guys were really cool.
They were really cool.
I love that the people Ezra has made friends with are like the local little creatures. Yeah, like his connection to animals. Yeah. I love that he carved little Jedi symbols for them.
Yeah.
I will be honest, going into this, as the season's been going on, I was very worried that they were going to just not have really aged Ezra. Because they want to sell that it's Ezra from Rebels. And I was like, that's going to ruin it if he's not really like aged. They did it perfectly. He looked great. He looks exactly like his dad from Rebels, which I think sells it even more. I love that he looks more rugged, like he has actually been living nomadly. Like,
And he's still so Ezra about it.
Yeah, he's still very Ezra.
It's
He
like,
was straight back
I'm
in.
alive. That's the only thing I care about. We're winning, bitch.
Yeah, I liked that there was kind of a moment where he's like, I did what we had to do to win. And then Sabine doesn't say anything. He's like, it worked. And you see that look of like, I hope it worked? Because he's just had to live for 9 years, just being like, well, I did it. I'm presuming that saved the day. Like he has to have just like accepted that I did what I could.
Did I save Lothal? Did I help us stop the Empire?
He's just probably living off the hope that yes, it worked.
Yeah.
I think it's going to bite Sabine in the ass for not telling him how she got there.
So it goes one of two ways, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I do see it being the first way more than the second. I can see, to show us that it is definitely Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
She says what happens, and he overreacts. And like we'll see it as valid, but he'll overreact and blame her and be angry and shouty. Or they use it as a way to show how much Ezra has changed. And she tells him, and he's like, "Right, let's get to work fixing it." Very Jedi Master kind of. Okay, what's done is done. Thank you for coming to get me. That was a difficult decision. We've got work to do now, and I'm really curious to see which direction they go.
I think she doesn't tell him. Ahsoka arrives, finds them,
says, "What the fuck were you doing?"
And she's like, "What the fuck, Sabine?" And Ezra's like, "Huh?" And then obviously it gets explained. I have a it's a long shot, but I have a hope to complete the Ghost Crew. I am hoping we get Force Ghost Kanan. Imagine Ezra's just completed his training, like he's been training still for using Force Ghost Kanan to teach him. And it's like he gets pissed at Sabine, goes off, and he has a talk with Force Ghost Kanan, who then reminds him, like you say, come on, chill out, like, deal with this properly. What if we get live action Kanan? Then the Ghost Crew is complete.
I disagree. I don't think the Ghost Crew would be complete.
Why?
We've not had live action Callus. And I view him as Ghost Crew.
Okay. We imagine he's with Zeb, though, right?
Yes. I'm hoping we get live action Callus.
I think those two could turn up at the end.
I am... While I'm not much of a shipper, you know me, I don't believe in shipping people. One not confirmed relationship I choose to believe in is Zeb and Callus.
Okay.
I'm all in on that relationship. I see it, I like it, I get it. I see where a lot of the time I'm like, I don't really see it. That one, I see it. I can see Zeb and Callus off on their little planet raising their family.
I think it'd be cool if those two do get to show up at the end. I imagine we haven't had Zeb yet because, let's be honest, the VFX budget for Zeb is too high.
To do it right is not cheap.
To do it regularly on every multiple episodes, they can't afford that. But yeah, I thought Ezra return was great. The little banter they had. I do think it's going to bite Sabine in the back when he finds out what it cost. We also got some more info on Baylan.
Yes.
So there's two bits to this I was going to talk about. We hear him talk about what essentially was Order 66 is what he's explaining.
Yeah.
Like the collapse. And I, for a split second, because I was like, we're not going to get Order 66. We've seen Ahsoka play through it. Like, there's no need to show us again. Baylan starts talking about it. I was like, fuck off, Dave. Don't do this to us again. Like,
there's still time.
I was like, he's going to show us Order 66. He's found a way.
There's still time.
There is still time. And I'm now worried because I didn't consider Baylan being the reason we see it.
Oh my god. What if Anakin killed Baylan's original apprentice?
Possibly.
Or maybe we saw the disdain that he had for Ahsoka because of her relationship with Anakin, who he seems to know was Vader.
What if it's not Anakin killed his apprentice, Anakin killed his master?
Yeah.
Because if you think of that time period, yes, he was we know he was a general, and obviously he probably wasn't a Padawan anymore, but he was probably still his general. Obviously, his master would be older.
All I'm thinking is a general. The people who we know were generals are Windu, Plo Koon, Kenobi, Skywalker, like council member level Jedi's.
Yeah,
So I would assume if you're gonna go for a what's a gut punch,
yeah,
it's gonna and for him to have been a master Jedi to have been a general, he must also have successfully trained a Padawan
possibly then. Yeah,
because that's
I
part of the
I
rules.
do think you're right. I do think Anakin's killed someone, and that's how he knows that he became Vader.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I like how he talks about how he misses the concept of the Jedi, but he doesn't actually miss what they did.
that was Dave talking to the fans about old school Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That is 100% what that is. That is Dave going, you guys miss what you remember Star Wars being. It
Yeah,
was never what you remember it as.
yeah.
You'll sit there, you'll go into it and you go, God, I miss when Star Wars wasn't political. It was always fucking political. And
It's
I genuinely believe that is Dave just going, guys, it's
enjoy it.
okay. Just enjoy stuff.
Um, and I like it's interesting how he talks about this planet that it's all like it was all dreams and mystical and like folk tales. Something like we don't know anything about this, but clearly the Jedi were told about these things. Um, and then he obviously mentions like his plan is while everyone's running away from, he senses that the Night Sisters are running away from something, which also leans into why would they load their dead sisters onto there? They want to take them with them. They want to get off this fucking planet. I have a few theories to what he's going to be searching or what it is he feels and he's searching for, whether he knows it or not. He obviously, I don't think he does know it. He just knows there's some powerful force related thing that is drawing him.
Yeah.
Um, it could be the father and all that stuff, that like energy with the father, daughter, son. I don't think that's likely. Um, Something I saw online, which is the if you remember in Clone Wars when Yoda went and did that weird test in the Sith temple, and I
Yeah.
forget what they were called, but there was like 5 ghosts around him.
Yeah.
They're something to do with the Force. It could be them. I think the Wellspring or something it's called. But the one I'm leaning to, because this is very much Rebels season 2, or not Rebels Part 2. What if it's Bendu?
Or a Bendu like creature.
Well, Bendu just like blips, like he blipped away, like he is connected with the Force, like he could just leave and appear anywhere he wants because he's connected to the Force.
Surely, if Bendu was living on this planet, Ezra would have bumped into him. And I get like planets are huge, but just the nature of the Force and the nature of Ezra. Or maybe
Well,
that's how Ezra's like done more training to be more,
maybe,
instead of being a Jedi, he is just
maybe he
one with the
knows
Force.
what this thing is.
Yeah.
It's that, or it's something very Sith related, potentially. Um, I think it was Luke messaged me or put in that like his theory is it could be Palpatine or like his Force energy, and this is fucking Dave trying to fix the whole somehow Palpatine has returned. Like maybe it's linked with that. I think Bendu would be very cool because also Bendu has connection with Thrawn. He was part of
Yeah.
the reason that Thrawn got fucked up.
Yeah.
Um, but Bendu is also he is neither good nor evil. He's just the
He's one with
Force.
the Force. Yeah.
Um, so that like a live action Bendu would look sick.
That would be so intimidating as well. Bendu was intimidating in the fucking cartoon.
Yes, he was. Um,
Yeah, that could be spicy.
a lot of interesting threads going on.
I
But I
feel
think
like this happens every week.
it does,
More
which is
questions than answers.
just shows like how well this is going though, because it's like we get answers, but then Dave gives us more questions that keeps us wanting more.
What I will say is, we know as this series of Ahsoka is set before Mandalorian season 3, with potentially a small overlap.
Yes.
And we know in that Shadow Council meeting that Thrawn was interested in the cloning work that Gideon was looking into.
Yes.
I wonder if that's anything to do with the dead Night Sisters, and he's promised the Night Sisters access to the cloning technology so they can repopulate Dathomir.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
or he's trying to clone his like Dust Boy troopers.
I've got a feeling this Filoni Mandoverse film is gonna be like Mandalorians and Jedi's versus Night Sisters and Thrawn and Empire Remnants.
Do you know what I'd be okay with? Is if that film's just called Heir to the Empire, and it's all about like Thrawn making a visible return, and like there's a big fucking like to take down Thrawn.
And yeah, Thrawn loses at the end, but whatever he does accomplish is what leads to the First Order, which still launches the galaxy into more terror.
I think Dave is going to use Thrawn as a catalyst to set up the First Order, and he is doing everything in his power to make those films make sense. 100%. And I applaud him for that, because I don't think anyone else would have taken on that challenge.
My man has deconstructed every scene from that film trying to work out what he can fix. I respect the fuck out of it.
Now you're reminding me that like this is set potentially with a slight overlap into Mando season 3. What if Grogu saw the Purgle?
What if that was on them on their way back?
What if that is Ahsoka, Ezra, Sabine returning in a Purgle? That'd be pretty.
There is, now that we know, like at the time of Mando season 3, we didn't know that Filoni was getting a film to wrap up all these Disney Plus shows. That feels now very, very deliberate that Grogu is so in tune with animals.
Yep.
I am so down for the Mandoverse saga to end with Ezra and Grogu going off as student and master.
Oh my god, yes. Ezra teaching Grogu.
And then maybe we get a little cameo of them in the later film where Rey's starting the new Jedi Order. But we have options.
We do. And we have what, 2 episodes left now? So I think you're right.
7, 8, and 9.
Oh, sorry, 7, 8, and 9, yeah. Next episode, Ahsoka arrives. She's about to get met with. Let's rip some of them Purgle, by the way, that are going to arrive. They're about to get blasted.
I don't want to see Purgle die in live action. That's going to hurt.
We are going to, unfortunately.
It's going to hurt.
Ahsoka's going to end up fleeing that. And I think that's how she's going to find Ezra, because she's going to just fucking hide on the planet somewhere. And then they'll end up somehow getting in contact with Sabine, I bet. And then I think there's that whole fallout of the truth comes out that then leads to another fight with Baylan, because Baylan's hunting them. So maybe Sabine gets revenge on Baylan. Well, revenge, like rematch. Or do you think Baylan's going to forget about them and go off and find this thing?
I'm not entirely convinced that. So you know how in the trailer for Ahsoka, we thought we saw Baylan and Ahsoka fighting in the World Between Worlds?
Yes.
Then we saw where they were looking at the map and we were like, oh,
yeah.
So they weren't fighting in the World Between Worlds. What if this is like a triple bluff and their rematch does happen in the World Between Worlds and the power that's calling out to Baylan is an entryway to the World Between Worlds?
Oh, wait. Yeah, no, maybe it's not he's in the World Between Worlds, but they're at an actual gate point for it. Maybe, that's what he's hearing.
And that gives him some kind of clarity, and he realizes that he doesn't have to be against Ahsoka right now.
Ooh. That's an interesting theory. Now I think about it as well, is I don't think Baylan's going to hunt them. I think Balin's going to be like, we're going to go find our thing, and he's going to show up. He's going to
Balin is
split.
too.
He's going to
Balin is
split them.
too calm a character.
Yeah, he's very calculated. Do you know what I think actually happens? I think Ahsoka has to go after Balin, while Ezra and Sabine have to go deal with Thrawn.
Yeah.
And because it's just Ezra and Sabine, no offense to them, but like, someone tells me that's why Thrawn gets away.
You've also got to remember, Thrawn's had 9 years of being thwarted by these two. He will be obsessing over how he could have beaten them.
Well, here's the thing as well, like, he clearly knew where, or has keeping track of Ezra. So he's obviously not engaging with him because he has no need to, it doesn't gain him anything. But he's keeping track of him because obviously he screwed him.
Yeah, he doesn't have the resources to deal with him, but he wants to know where he is in case he has the opportunity to. Yeah.
Ezra, you can't tell me he doesn't know, oh, there's Thrawn's ship again. Like, you can't fucking miss that thing. Like, he knows where Thrawn is. Thrawn's on his ship. And he knows the ship's not gone anywhere.
He almost used seeing that ship as a victory, though, because every time Ezra sees that, it's like, good, the fucker's still here.
Yeah. But, like, they obviously know where each other is, essentially. So it's like, Thrawn's going to know if they're coming. But I think you're right. 100%. I think he will happily defeat them and then leave. Something's, but also very interesting, like, Thrawn wanted this Night Sisters magic to help.
Yeah. It's also very interesting to me that magic is spelled with a K.
Yes.
Magic.
Make it more spicy.
There's just
a little bit of spice.
I'm a big believer in the way a universe decides to spell magic is very important to how the magic is used. And I've got a feeling we're going to look back and go, we should have known. There was a K at the end of it. We should have known.
I feel like their spelling makes it feel more mystical, like the Night Sister stuff, than it being like, poof, I'm vanished. Or like, so
I feel like magic with just a C at the end is very much study from a book.
Wizard.
Is essentially science, but different. And then magic with a K is very much, we don't know how it works, but it does.
Here's some green flames.
Yeah.
Here's a dust boy. Yeah, no, I just want more.
I'm not that well attuned to Romanian culture, but something tells me that if we would have a proper look, that the Night Sisters would have a lot of inspiration from Romanian culture. I'm willing to bet.
I don't know. I know. Well, I know the visual look at them came from the original designs for the Sith.
That makes sense.
Like a concept. Where that concept obviously pulled inspiration from, I don't know, but probably like voodoo-y stuff.
But I am so ready for next week's episode.
Same. Can't come quick enough, honestly. Every week I'm wanting the next episode.
It's
I might have to go back and watch prequels and Clone Wars because of this show.
You know what's really funny though? Me, you, and Luke seem to be the only 3 people on planet Earth that adored both Andor and Ahsoka.
Every
week on the internet, it seems to be people screaming that no, Andor is Star Wars, or no, Ahsoka is Star Wars. The other one's dog shit. And then you've just got me, you, and Luke sitting there going, "Yeah,
Star Wars,
politics and magic, politics and magic."
Well, that's like, do you know what those? Just need Dave to come out and be like, guys, they're both Star Wars. I think I'm very much like, now we've seen this, like, everything of his is coming full circle. Like Anakin being, like, Clone Wars Anakin, Ahsoka. I'm very excited to see how he wraps this whole like Mandoverse thing up.
What I'm really, really curious about, because we've always said when you look at like the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars and the first season of Rebels, it's like the way they were written was to sell it to Cartoon Network. And then Cartoon Network were happy because it was making the money, and then he got into the real shit. Which is hilarious because you can almost see it flip. And he's like, okay, the people who write the checks don't care anymore because the money's coming back in. Real
Yep.
stories.
Yeah.
I do just wonder if it's a case of like MCU style, he left stuff open ended with ideas,
Yeah.
and now he's just flushing it out, or if back at the beginning he was like, if I get the chance, I'm going to have a master plan for it all.
I think
In reality, it's probably closer to the first one because no one can function as a human planning that many years ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was all fully planned. I 100% believe throughout the Clone Wars and Rebels, we know he spends a lot of time with George. And it's like, he'll be writing it, and he's like, oh, he'll just like, there'll be an evening, him and George are drinking. He's like, oh, I left this kind of open. And George's like, oh, well, maybe in the future, like this, maybe that's something that plays out in the future. Or like, they probably talked about, like, oh, what if, like, down the road we pull that back again? That'd be a cool little story we could do maybe one day. And they've thrown these ideas around. I definitely think it's like, Mando season 1 was his, like, trial into, I don't have to worry about pleasing anyone anymore. Like, I can find my style in live action. Sort of like you say with season 1 of Rebels and the first seasons of Clone Wars. Like, he found his style. And then it's like Ahsoka. He's like, this is I'm steering the ship now.
The first time he does anything, the first series in a new medium for him is always just to keep the accountants happy and get an audience locked in. And then he's like, and now, because you can see it, the first series of Clone Wars and Rebels and Mando were just adventure of the week.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and then all of a sudden in Mando season 2, you've got this whole overarching story. It's like, what do you mean? In season 1, the most overarching bit was Moff Gideon is a thing.
Yeah.
But there was legitimately episodes where it's like, oh, I crashed on this ice planet and I need to find this part so that we can leave the ice planet. And that was a whole episode.
Did you watch the Master Apprentice special?
No, I didn't. When I realized it was just a behind the scenes thing, I didn't bother.
So I watched it, and they're obviously just like, it's very short, and they're talking, but there is a moment where Dave's talking, and he's like, when they did Mando, and he got the opportunity to direct an episode, he was like, he's like, I'm doing Ahsoka. Like, this is my chance to try Ahsoka in live action. That's why we got that episode, is because he just wanted to test out doing Ahsoka in live action. And because of that episode, he was like, this works. And that's why we now have the whole show. Like, it was purely just like...
The episode did well, it worked. He just kicked the fucking door down and went, give me money!
And then there's a bit where he has Favreau with him on set, and there's Dave, George Lucas, and then Favreau, and like the three of them sat together, and it's just like, you can see George, like they mentioned that George was like wanted to say what a good job that Favreau's been doing, and it's like George is almost passing the reins to these two, like, run with it. You are doing it correctly.
I want nothing more in this world than to go to Skywalker Ranch, have a steak and a glass of whiskey with Lucas, Favreau, and Filoni, and just talk about Star Wars for a couple of hours.
I would happily sign an NDA.
Oh yeah.
Just so I can ask things, even if I'm never able to, like, if that's a lifelong NDA.
I would sign an NDA so strong that I can't even tell you and Luke I've been there to do it.
Yeah.
Just to get the chance to do it. And yeah, it would kill me inside, sat here every week, just like, well, you're disagreeing with me on the point. I'm like, George Lucas told me this was the plan, you dumb fuck.
I'd love to be able to just go on like an internet rant, like Kanan's voice actor, I've forgotten his name.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, where he's like, I've spent time with George Lucas. This is how it works.
He's explained the Force to me. It is perfectly balanced.
Yeah, just like
you had the Emperor, you had Palpatine. That's why it was twins. 2 + 2. It's balanced.
Yeah.
He was like, I could probably tell you who the good guys and the bad guys are going to be in the next film because it's easy.
It would be interesting to see if any of that like plays out perfectly, and he's just like, see.
I love that rant so much. I showed it to Jenna the other day, and she was like, "That is hilarious." I was like, "Yes, it is brilliant."
By the way, if they do give us Force Ghost Kanan.
It has to be him.
It has to be him.
Has to be him. 100%.
I'd love if they've actually used him for the picture on the dashboard that Hera has.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell. I think if we could tell easily, it'd be too much of a giveaway. Because
I
if it
think
was
that's
him, they
why.
got into if they got him into that picture, everyone would instantly be like, "Well, I want a cameo."
Yeah, it's the Chekhov's gun.
Exactly.
Yeah.